Most Tropheus don't die from aggression. They die from us, from the wrong food, from silence, from being alone in a world built for crowds. And the worst part? They die in tanks that look perfect because the keeper never learned to listen. But if you do listen, if you understand what this fish is really asking for, it will give you something no other fish can. Now, what if I told you there's a fish unlike anything else in your aquarium? Not because it's aggressive, not because it's rare, but because it lives by rules so deeply rooted in nature, they haven't changed for millions of years. This is Tropheus, a fish that didn't evolve for attention or for beauty. It evolved for balance, for movement, for community. It's not here to perform, it's here to live on its own terms. Tropheus isn't difficult, it's just particular. And once you understand what it needs, it becomes one of the most fascinating, rewarding, and socially complex fish you'll ever keep. No, it won't stalk your other fish. No, it won't dig up your plants or destroy your tank. But it will ask you for a little more awareness, more consistency, more curiosity. Because Tropheus doesn't thrive in chaos or neglect. It thrives in rhythm. It comes from the rocky shallows of Lake Tanganyika, one of the oldest lakes on Earth. And in that narrow strip of light and stone, Tropheus learned to live a certain way, not alone, not on meat, not in still water, but in motion, in groups, on algae. Imagine this, dozens of Tropheus moving together over sunlit stone, pecking, grazing, darting, challenging, communicating, not fighting to the death, but working out their place in a living, breathing system. That's what they're designed for. And when we bring them into our tanks, we're not giving them a new life. We're inviting their world into ours. If you keep too few, one may become dominant and others feel lost. If you feed too much protein, their digestion struggles. If the water shifts too fast, they get confused. But none of this is a deal breaker. These aren't fatal flaws. They're just signs. Signs that Tropheus is a fish that asks to be listened to. And when you do listen, the results are incredible. A tank that doesn't just look beautiful, but feels alive. Fish that don't just swim, but interact. A community that pulses with energy, hierarchy, and meaning. You'll see tiny rituals, who gets to graze where, who challenges who, when a female suddenly disappears and then re-emerges with a mouthful of life. Because yes, Tropheus are maternal mouthbrooders. They carry their fry in their mouths for weeks, without eating, without fuss, just breathing, protecting, surviving. It's quiet, it's subtle, it's powerful. And all of this becomes possible if you give them what they're asking for. Not perfection, just respect. So if you've seen Tropheus before and thought, wow, I love those colors, you're already on the right path. Now take one more step. Learn their rhythm. Build a tank that mirrors their natural world, and they'll reward you with behavior and beauty that most hobbyists never get to see. This isn't a pet to decorate a corner of your room. This is a relationship between you and one of the most ancient, socially intelligent, and uniquely evolved fish in the aquarium world. Welcome to Tropheus. Let's explore where it all began, in the wild. Lake Tanganyika isn't just a lake, it's a time machine. Over 10 million years old, more than 1,400 meters deep, it holds nearly 20% of Earth's fresh water in a single body. And yet, the drama we care about doesn't happen in the depths. It happens in the light. In the first meter or two near the rocky shore, where sun meets stone. This is where Tropheus lives and survives and thrives. But don't picture a calm lagoon. The shallow edge of Tanganyika is a battlefield. There's no sandbed, no plants, no floating food, just sharp rock, intense sunlight, crashing waves, and the thinnest film of green algae growing on stone. That algae, it's gold, and every Tropheus knows it. They don't hunt for bugs. They don't chase shrimp. They graze. Imagine a herd of zebra crossing a dry savanna, heads down, moving constantly, barely pausing. That's Tropheus. They move together, pecking, shifting, competing, each one scraping the rocks with its downturned mouths shaped like natural chisels. Their bodies aren't built for bursts of speed, they're built for endurance, for repetition, for tension. But here's the twist. Algae doesn't grow everywhere. It clings to sunlit surfaces, thin, patchy, and always under pressure. That's why Tropheus never stop. If they rest, they fall behind. If they slow down, they go hungry. It's not aggression for fun, it's survival by motion. And it's not just one fish on a rock. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, moving like a tide. Competing, yes, but with an unspoken rhythm. When one becomes too dominant, the others push back. When a fish shows weakness, it gets edged out, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, because this ecosystem is brutally efficient. Only the most responsive, well-fed, and socially aware individuals survive. Not the strongest, not the prettiest, the ones who adapt to rhythm. Now imagine pulling one of these fish out of that world, a world of crashing waves, sun-warmed algae, constant motion, and complex group dynamics, and putting it in a glass box. Flat bottom, bright LED lights, filter on high, 2 fish, 3 rocks, 1 lonely corner. Do you see the disconnect? In the wild, Tropheus has purpose. It works for every bite. It knows where it stands in the social ladder. It gets feedback every second from the rocks, the light, and the colony around it. In a tank, you remove that rhythm, and the fish loses its script. And that's why so many fail. Not because Tropheus is fragile, but because we forget what shaped it. Keeping Tropheus isn't about decorations. It's about understanding the environment that built this fish, down to the chemistry of the rocks, the angle of the light, and the flow of the water. Because in Tanganyika, life didn't evolve to be easy. It evolved to be precise. In Tropheus, it's the living memory of that evolution. The phrase Tropheus are aggressive gets thrown around a lot. It's almost a warning label in the hobby. But the truth is more complicated and way more interesting, because Tropheus don't just get aggressive for no reason. Their behavior isn't about rage. It's about rhythm, about social pressure, about living in a crowd where tension flows like current. In the wild, Tropheus live in large groups, not 5, not 6. We're talking dozens, sometimes over 100, swimming together in rocky shallows, constantly moving, constantly interacting. They don't form tight schools like tetras, but they don't wander alone either. They're in visual contact, physical contact, social contact, and that's where their so-called aggression comes from. Not chaos, but structure, a living grid of social signals. When a group is large, the tension is spread out. One fish flares up, another pushes back, another chases, another blocks, and the pressure moves like a wave. No one fish takes the full hit. No one fish becomes the punching bag. But what happens when we ignore that rhythm? Shrink the group to 5, or worse, 2 or 3? Suddenly, the balance collapses. One fish becomes the alpha, and it has nowhere to focus its energy except one unfortunate target. That's when you start seeing the symptoms. One fish hiding behind the filter, clamped fins, rapid breathing, skipping meals. Some aquarists mistake this for disease. Others think it's just a shy fish. But what they're seeing is something deeper: social collapse. That fish isn't scared, it's isolated. And for a species that evolved in crowds, isolation isn't just stressful, it's existential. That's why in Tropheus care, bigger is safer, at least 12, ideally 20 or more. I know, it sounds like a lot, but here's the twist. The more you add, the less they fight. Why? Because aggression gets diluted. The dominant fish still flexes, but now it's flexing on 10 others. Not just one poor soul. The chasing spreads, the energy dissipates, the pressure stays dynamic, not destructive. That's how they evolved, not in peace, but in motion, in friction, in constant low-level conflict that never goes too far, just like in Lake Tanganyika, where survival means movement. So the real danger in Tropheus tanks, it's not fighting, it's silence, stillness. A tank that feels calm might actually be a tank where one fish is being quietly destroyed. Ever had a fish disappear behind a heater and never come back out? You might have seen it firsthand. Next time someone says, "Aren't Tropheus a bit too aggressive?" remember this. It's not about aggression, it's about numbers. It's about rhythm. It's about giving them enough bodies to spread the signal across the group. Because when you get that balance right, what looks like tension from the outside is actually harmony from within. And hey, be honest, how many did you start with when you first tried Tropheus? 3? 5? One stubborn male in a 40-gallon? Come on, drop your confession in the comments. We've all been there. Take a close look at a Tropheus. Notice anything odd? Its mouth points down, not forward. Its body isn't sleek like a predator's, no flashy fins, no torpedo build. It's compact, efficient, kinda like a fish designed by an engineer, not an artist. Why? Because every part of Tropheus is made for one thing: scraping algae off rocks. That weird mouth? It's not a defect, it's a chisel. In the wild, they press it against stone and chip away for hours. Not in excitement, in rhythm, over and over again. Even their gut tells the story. Their intestines are insanely long because algae has barely any calories. It takes forever to digest. So Tropheus became masters of slow, steady nutrition. Fiber goes in, energy comes out. It's like the fish version of a solar panel. But here's the mistake. We feed them like they're peacocks, protein pellets, bloodworms, brine shrimp. Basically, the fishy equivalent of cheeseburgers. And what happens? They bloat. Not because they're weak, because they're misfed. Would you pour jet fuel into a lawnmower? No? Then why feed meat to a rock grazer? If you want them to thrive, feed like nature intended. Spirulina, algae wafers, blanched spinach, light, green, and fibrous. Keep it boring, keep it natural. Because when you feed them right, they don't just survive, they glow. Have you ever accidentally loved them to death with the wrong food? Be honest. Tell us in the comments, what was your Tropheus feeding mistake? We've all done it. But food isn't the only thing that can break a Tropheus. There's another killer, quieter, sneakier, and it lives in your water bucket. Most fish can handle a little chaos, a chilly top-up, a skipped water change, a pH swing or two. They flinch, they shrug, they move on. But Tropheus, they don't like surprises at all. These fish come from Lake Tanganyika, basically the Switzerland of water chemistry. Everything there is stable. pH doesn't shift, temperature doesn't crash overnight, hardness doesn't waver week to week, and that rock-solid consistency shaped every part of them, from digestion to behavior. So when your tank drops 2 degrees because you forgot to match your refill water, or when pH dips half a point because you didn't buffer, you might call it maintenance day. They call it the apocalypse. At first, it's subtle. They slow down, go pale, graze less. Then comes hiding, clamped fins, bloating, maybe even sideways drifting. By the time you see it, the damage is already underway. That's why with Tropheus, it's not just about hitting the right parameters, it's about holding them. pH 7.8 to 9.0? Good. But does it stay there? Temperature 24 to 26 degrees Celsius? Great. But are your heaters actually awake at night? Boring? Maybe. Instagrammable? Not really, but consistency is the secret sauce. Tropheus aren't fragile. They're precise. Their bodies don't tolerate chaos because they never evolved to expect it. But give them rock-solid stability, and they'll reward you with deep color, bold behavior, and effortless breeding. So, be honest. How stable is your tank really? Are you a weekly water warrior, or more of a smell test and hope for the best kind of keeper? Tell us in the comments. We won't judge. Okay, maybe a little, but with love. So, your water is stable. Great. Now comes the part most people get wrong, the layout. Because when most aquarists design a tank, they think like interior decorators. Rocks on the left, sand in the middle, a cool background, maybe a fake plant for flair. But Tropheus? They don't care how pretty it looks to you. To them, layout isn't decoration, it's language. It tells them where to move, where to hide, where to feed, and who's in charge. In the wild, these fish live in rocky chaos. Jagged stones, ledges, cracks, shadows. No soft sand, no open plains, no driftwood for aesthetic, just stone. Hard, irregular, meaningful. Every rock in a Tropheus tank should have a job. Break line of sight, mark territory, create exits. If one fish can see the whole tank, it'll try to control it, but block that view, and something magical happens. The aggression spreads out, the tension drops, the group breathes. You're not decorating a tank, you're building a city with alleys, blind corners, backup exits. Call it urban planning, but for introverted fish with anger issues, even the lighting matters. Too bright? They feel exposed. Dim and indirect? They display better, eat more, and actually flirt. Yes, flirt. Tropheus romance is real. Just give them the right shadows. So be honest, is your tank layout made for fish or for Instagram? Does every rock have a purpose, or did you just scatter them like sprinkles? Tell us in the comments, what's your tank setup like? Open concept or fortress mode? Because when Tropheus feel like they're back in Tanganyika, they stop fighting the tank and they start living in it. So now your tank has rocks, caves, blind spots. A proper fishy city looks good, right? But here's the twist. Tropheus don't just respond to what's solid, they also respond to what's invisible. Light, flow, background. These aren't just decor choices, they're emotional signals. They shape how Tropheus behave every single day. Let's start with lighting. In Lake Tanganyika, light doesn't come from ceiling-mounted LEDs. It filters through waves and clouds, bouncing off stone. It's uneven, software natural. But in most tanks, bright lights blast from above like they're being interrogated. And what do Tropheus do? Clamp their fins, drop to the bottom, hide behind a sponge filter like they owe someone money. Dim the lights, even slightly, and something amazing happens. They swim higher, they flash color, they get bold. Some even start showing off in front of the ladies. Tropheus flirting is real. It's just less romantic and more like underwater shoving. Next up, water flow. Tropheus aren't river fish, but they're not made for stillness either. In the wild, waves crash all day, stirring up oxygen and keeping algae fresh. When tanks are too still, behavior stagnates. Waste settles, tension builds, but a little current, just enough to keep things moving, wakes them up. It's not about turning your tank into a whirlpool, it's about rhythm, a gentle push that keeps the tank breathing. And finally, the background. Think it doesn't matter? Think again. Tropheus instinctively avoid bright, reflective surfaces. Glass walls, white backdrops, they feel exposed, like they're floating in space with no place to hide. But add a black or dark rock background, boom, confidence. They move up, they engage more. Their color deepens. It's not magic, it's contrast. Together, these three things, light, flow, and background, build what we call emotional texture. It's not about test kits, it's about how your fish feel, safe or stressed, hidden or visible. And when you get these invisible details right, Tropheus don't just survive, they perform. So, what's your setup like? Are your lights soft and moody, or full spotlight concert mode? Do you have peaceful flow, or a mini tsunami? And what's behind your tank, depth or drywall? Drop it in the comments. Let's see who's running fish spays and who's running boot camps. So now your layout's dialed in. The lighting feels like sunset. The flow is gentle. The background's dark and moody. You've basically built the Tropheus version of a boutique hotel. But before you start patting yourself on the back, there's one more thing to ask. Should you even be doing this? Because Tropheus aren't for everyone. And that's not gatekeeping, it's just the truth. This isn't a fish you grab because it looked cool at the store or came with a beginner-friendly tag. Tropheus doesn't care about your budget, or your excuses, or your favorite YouTuber's tank tour. This is a species that demands a contract, a commitment, not just of money, but of mindset. So be honest. Do you have time to test your water every single week, not just when things start smelling weird? Will you pre-buffer every bucket, even when you're tired, hungry, and questioning your life choices? Will you buy spirulina flakes instead of whatever's on sale, even when the store guy shrugs and says, they'll eat it? Can you walk past the 125-gallon tank and say, that's what I need, instead of cramming 6 fish into a 30-gallon tank you already had in the garage? Will you resist pulling out a bullied fish, knowing that isolation might kill it faster than aggression ever could? Can you sit there, watch them stress, test your patience, rearrange the social hierarchy 3 times in a week, and still not interfere? If your answers are, maybe, I'll try, or how bad could it be? Then honestly, wait, don't do it. Not yet, because Tropheus won't bend for you. They won't forgive hesitation. They won't survive on convenience. But if your answers were yes, not just once, but every time, then you're about to experience something rare. You'll see behavior that feels like watching a living documentary. You'll witness silent mouth brooding that makes you stop mid-step. You'll feel pride when a perfectly timed water change leads to a spawning event. You'll stop calling them fish and start thinking of them as a colony, a rhythm, a pulse. Tropheus is not a decoration. It's a relationship. Not a beginner's badge, but a graduate degree in cichlid care. And like anything truly meaningful, it takes effort, patience, and curiosity. But if you give that, you get beauty in motion. You get challenge with purpose. You get a tank that doesn't just look alive, it feels alive. So, should you even try? That depends. Are you here to collect fish, or are you here to understand something deeper? If it's the second, welcome. You're ready. So, now that we've scared off the casual hobbyists, if you're still watching, congratulations. You might just be one of us. One of the few who doesn't flinch at water tests, who gets excited by algae growth, and who knows that real fish keeping isn't just pretty tanks. It's discipline, routine, and a little bit of madness. But hey, what about you? Have you ever kept Tropheus? Did they thrive, or did they test your limits? What's your group size, your feeding schedule, your biggest lesson? Drop it in the comments. Let's create something real here. Not just another video, but a shared base of knowledge. For keepers, by keepers. And before you go, pause, really pause. Ask yourself, how often do you find a video that respects your time? That doesn't treat you like a click, but like a fellow aquarist? A video that tells the whole truth, not just the shiny parts. Maybe this is your first time here. Maybe it's the only time. You'll watch, enjoy, and move on, forgetting the name, never coming back. But maybe, not this time. Maybe today you hit subscribe, not just because of this video, but because of what it stands for. Because here we go deeper. We don't oversimplify. We don't copy-paste care guides. We tell real stories. We show the full picture. We respect the fish, and we respect you. So if that means something to you, click subscribe right now. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a home, a place for people who care, people who learn, people who fail, fix it, and grow stronger. And who knows, maybe your story will be the next one we bring to life. So don't scroll past, don't disappear. You belong here. Check out our other videos while you're here. If Tropheus moved you, wait until you meet the ones who fight, breed, and die by the rules of water itself. This is Dark Cichlids, where knowledge swims deeper. See you in the next one.